that organization could have gone down. Whereas fast forward 15, 16 years, our turnover is $9 billion at the moment. Third largest food retailer in Russia. It's an incredible success story.
I see that you've been executive chairman at the Lenta hypermarkets.
Oh yes.
You told me before we sat down that it was probably the most challenging.
Absolutely.
You want to speak a bit more about that?
Absolutely. I mean, sometimes in your life, and I'm a big fan of this, getting outside your comfort zone, doing something. And in recent years, for example, I went on Sky Sports a few months ago. That is so far outside my comfort zone, live on TV. But afterwards, you feel so good. And the equivalent in my sort of business career was aged 40, I think it was. It was 2008. So I'd been involved with this company called Lenta Hypermarkets. And it's set up in probably about 99. And we built up hypermarkets, fairly obvious. And I was a director and an early investor in this. And in 2008, the company got into some problems. As 2008 was a bit of a financial crisis globally, including in Russia. And Lenta had a lot of debt at the time, had a consortium of banks, and we had a chairman who just, for various reasons, had enough. There was a bit of a shareholder dispute going on, which meant that the board of directors couldn't meet. There was bankers knocking on the door, and things were going badly. And nobody wanted to take the role of the chairman of this hypermarket business, which was and still is one of the largest grocers, one of the largest retail businesses in Russia. So one day, and it was a dinner with the former chairman, and I said to him, Oleg, well, if you want someone to go in there and be chairman during this time of shareholder dispute, I'll do it, because I think I'm acceptable to both parties in the dispute. And surprisingly, he accepted it. So suddenly I was the executive chairman. I was living in London, but I had to go back and live in Russia for a period of about 6 months and be in charge, everyday charge of a business with 11,000 employees. And not just that, like I said, shareholders are in dispute. The board of directors can't meet. The bankers are ringing me every day asking, when are we going to get paid? It was one of the only times in my life when I thought to myself, have I taken on too much? Where the day before I started, I had a sleepless night. My heart was pounding. After the first day, I remember going into a bar and meeting one of my Russian friends for some advice. And as he walked in, he noticed somebody reading the local business newspaper called Delovy Peterburg, which is like the FT of St. Petersburg. And on the front page was my picture. And the headline was something along the lines of Englishman takes over chairmanship of Land. That's how big it was. Yeah. And it was a matter of, I had to take my accountant's logical brain, I had to prioritize all these things that were wrong. And I remember in week one, I called up all the bankers, the whole consortium, got them in a room. I presented to them, the CFO presented to them. I told them, this company's in a good situation. You're going to get paid all your principal. You're getting paid all your interest. Do not worry about the state of this business. Sadly, we had to be about 1,000 job cuts, but it needed to be done to keep the business alive. I went through, I got the whole team together and said, look, we're in crisis mode. And then a couple of weeks later, I said, we're in deep crisis mode. And a lot of it was about getting unnecessary cost out of the business and raising margins. And we did. We got about 30 million of waste out of the business. We chilled out the bankers. We kept everything alive. And after 6 months, we actually managed to get the board of directors together without beating each other up in a room in London, because one of the shareholders was, I won't name them, a very large entity. Biggest challenge in my life. It was something, like I said, I didn't know if I could cope with that, if I could do that, and it turned out that I could. So to this day, I'm delighted that I took on that challenge and the risk to my heart and my well-being.
What was the quality you would say that you tried to exert at that point in time that was the most helpful, that really...
I think it was a matter of communication and pragmatism. So the pragmatism side of things was that I had to go in there and said, no one's going to like me. Because when you've got to lose about 1,000 people from the organization.
Yeah.
When you've got to, and what we did, there were certain stores that were hypermarkets running 24 hours, and it just wasn't, I just looked at the data. I took a very analytical approach to absolutely everything, and managed to sort of get costs down, get revenues up in other places. So taking that analytical approach again and again and again, almost on a store-by-store basis. At the time, I think we had 39 hypermarkets, very large stores throughout the Soviet Union. I went throughout the former Soviet Union. I went to visit a lot of them, and you could see, I'm not a retailer by background, but I could see what was wrong. I could see how badly some of these stores were being managed, how there were shelves that were empty. There's simple things like that we were not doing well. But like I said, the main thing was that looking at the financial statements, I could see there's too much cost in there. One little example was, I'm a big fan of football, as you know, because your colleague Rusty is a big football fan. At the time, I was asked, do you want to come and play for the Lenta football team? And I did, but then I realised that we were spending 30,000 euros a year on this football team, which is a corporate football team. And I had to say, look, guys, this can't happen. Yeah, we're not going to subsidise that. I actually said the 50 euros per week that we're spending, for example, on hiring a place, I will pay for that out of my pocket. We will play football, but it's not going to cost 30 grand. We hired a trainer for the team, if you can believe that. That was the level, that was the micro level of excess that was in the business. Yeah. And I'd read a lot. For example, if you read a book about Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart, Sam Walton was a multi-billionaire, of course, because he built up Walmart. When he went on a business trip to various far-flung parts of the US, he would share an economy room with whoever he was traveling with. Now, he was, I guess, the chairman, CEO, but it was all about, if you want to be a low-price retailer, you've got to be a low-cost retailer. So I tried to bring that ethos back to the organisation. Of course, you lose a lot of friends, because you're having to lose people, you're having to lose managers, you're having to cut out the corporate football team, you're having to charge people to go to the canteen. The canteen was completely free, and I just said, look, I'm sorry, but I have to charge you $1 a time. Little things like that put 30 million back onto the bottom line of the business, kept us afloat, kept the bankers on side, because there was a very real risk that one of them could have pulled the plug. If we hadn't met our obligations to our bankers, to our suppliers, that organisation could have gone down. Whereas fast forward 15, 16 years, our turnover is $9 billion at the moment. It's, I think, the third largest grocer, third largest food retailer in Russia. It's an incredible success story. Within.
It reminds me. I recently I've seen a Moneyball.
Yes.
And yes. there's incomprehension from like maybe an older guard who's doing certain things certain way, and then you have to communicate to them that some changes need to be done, and that's very difficult. You see the numbers. Yes. You see on the spreadsheet. You see we're losing money here, there. How do you communicate that to people? Is like one of the most. Able to communicate that somehow.
What I had to do was, as the main guy, as the executive chairman, I had a management team, and I picked, within that larger management team, I picked 6 people who reported to me, and I met them every day in the chairman's office. And I sat down and we did a lot of analytical stuff. It was really a lot of spreadsheets, because a lot of retail is about detail, as the cliche goes. And it really was a matter of, again and again, getting those guys, particularly the CEO, who was a guy who'd fallen into the CEO role. This was a guy who used to, I think, run the warehouse, who'd fallen into the CEO. We were really in a bad situation at the time. But by the way, he was superb. Yeah. And he understood. And I said to him, we're in deep crisis mode. If we get this wrong over the next 6 months, this organisation goes down. And 10,000 people depend on it not going down. And we managed to cut out the rot, and like I said, and a lot of it hard work. I made it. On that first day, I had a driver who would pick me up. I was staying at my mother-in-law's apartment in St. Petersburg. I'd have a driver pick me up at 7 in the morning. I was the first person to get to work, and that was number one. I had work to do between 7:30 and 9. Number two is a signal to the management team, I'm the first to arrive, and I'd be the last to leave. Yeah. So hard work, everything that I've done, if you look back at my career, and including now at the YouTube years and what my son's doing on YouTube, so much of it comes down to hard work.